A job interview can certainly be stressful, but it's an important part of landing that perfect job you've been hoping for.
In Workplace Lessons, Nancy Werteen talks with a career coach about how to present yourself effectively after a manager likes your resume.
Well, if you'll be looking for a new job in the new year, do you know how to effectively communicate who you are and why you're the one who's right for the job? You should. I'm joined now by career coach Lindsay Watson, and you're also co-founder of FIA NYC Employment. So let's start out, first of all, with effective communication isn't always as easy as it sounds, is it?
Well, it's so great to be back, Nancy, and you're absolutely right. And what better time than the new year to talk about how to communicate effectively. And at the end of the day, no matter how long you've been doing what you're doing, it starts from within. Having the confidence to be able to clearly communicate who you are and what you've done, and do it in a way where anyone you talk to can understand it quickly and easily.
So why do you think people get a little bit tripped up with this idea?
What I found, even in my personal journey, it stems from two things. Not having as much confidence in being able to talk about yourself. It's so much easier to talk about others well, right? And also really not being able to understand how to clearly communicate what you've accomplished. And that takes some time. And if you don't know what you've accomplished, if you've just gotten in the rut of, doing the day-to-day work, then you have to be intentional to stop to really look at what have I been doing, what have I accomplished, and how can I clearly communicate that?
So what tips would you have before we go into an interview with a possible employer?
Yeah, so I was really thinking of this, and I have maybe 3 top tips that anybody can use. The first one is to stop and really look at what you've accomplished and what the theme of your resume says. Most of us who've been working for a few years have been doing the same thing over and over again, even if it's in different job titles. So for example, I connect people to people and people to opportunities. I do so on the platforms recruiting, career coaching, and supporting others. And I also like to connect community leaders to community organizations so that there's that mission connection there. So there's a theme of connection. From there, I can talk about what skill sets I've used over the years to support that theme. So really sit down and look at what have you been doing? Who have you been doing it for? And how can you clearly communicate that in a way where people will walk away saying, hey, I know what your theme is, right? So that would probably be a top one. The second one is to really practice and rehearse what your resume says. We're not putting any pressure on anyone that we interview to know every little bit of your resume, especially if you've been working for several years, but practice what your skill set says so that you'll be able to easily have a communication with anyone, especially if you're nervous during the interview. And one of the things that we've learned, since there's so many phone and Zoom interviews, just keep your resume with you. Keep it with you, right? Because sometimes if you're in the moment, right? If you have that communication, you want to be able to look at your resume in case you forget about something that maybe 5 or 7 years ago you did that you want to highlight. Again, take that pressure off of you. Keep that document handy in the event that you need it. It will help you to clearly communicate and to kind of stay calm in the midst of the moment.
Yeah, well, because it's so interesting. So your resume sort of has to come to life, right? You don't want to be so stoic as to be on it, but you want to be able to represent what's on there correctly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so when you said practice, do you mean like I sit with a friend and just sort of try to answer the questions?
Yes.
Okay.
You can sit with a friend, you can sit with yourself, you can take your document with you, and I've done this. My name is Lindsay Watson. I do this, 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 and this, and I do so in these 3 ways. I don't know, for me, it's a power of 3. There's something about just that power of 3, either communicating what you've done 3 different ways or talking about your top 3 skill sets that you have to offer. With a friend, you can hire a career coach, you can practice with yourself, but it's really being intentional with rehearsing who you are. We don't do it enough.
No, we don't, no. Great advice. Thank you so much, Lindsay.
Thank you.
And join me next week for another Workplace Lessons. I'm Nancy Werteen.